Welcome to our 1-hour session on stress in the childcare setting. This session is intended for educational purposes and only seeks to discuss the topic of stress and make recommendations regarding ways to minimize stress in the childcare setting. Most childcare facilities, as well as some states, may have very specific procedures and requirements regarding stress-related issues, as well as how they should be managed. Any established procedures should not be changed or altered in any way without first consulting your facility's director as well as your state's requirements. This session has been divided into 4 sections. First, we will begin by looking at the basics of stress as well as how it relates to childcare professionals. Then we will examine stressors, or triggers for stress, as well as the signs and symptoms of stress. Next, we will discuss ways to manage stress on a personal level. Finally, we will talk about some of the ways that stress can be managed in the workplace setting. Each section will be followed by a series of multiple-choice questions to help you monitor your progress. I'd like to begin this session with a story about a crucial moment that changed how I saw stress in my life. Now, I must admit that as stories go, this one isn't the greatest. It happened several years ago, I can't remember exactly when. I was sitting in a class, but I don't even remember which one. I can't even recall the professor's name. However, she said something that changed everything for me. We were discussing the stressful situations we'd all been experiencing lately in our own classrooms. It had been a rough week for me, so I was feeling particularly frazzled. Finally, the professor chimed in with these words of wisdom. She said that everyone has stress in their lives. Personal stress, work stress, family stress, all kinds of stress. In fact, she pointed out that some stress is actually a good thing. It keeps us productive. Now, personal stress varies from person to person, depending on many factors, but she indicated that our chosen careers have a lot to do with our overall levels of stress. What's more, any career involving the care and education of children has an extremely high level of stress associated with it. Why, you may ask? I know I did. I mean, I knew that I was under a lot of stress all the time, but I'd never consciously thought about why. Probably because I was too stressed to find the time. Anyway, my professor went on to explain that all people are asked to make hundreds of decisions every day during work hours. Some of these decisions are very important, but some of them are quite benign, mundane even. Things like, which paper clips should I buy? Or when should I go to lunch? Don't tend to be life-altering. In our profession, however, almost every decision we make is important, is life-changing, is changing their lives, the lives of the children left in our care. We are in the profession of helping young children to grow into successful adults, and that's an immense responsibility. That moment was an aha moment for me, as Oprah Winfrey would say. It wasn't until then that I'd ever thought about my day-to-day responsibilities in such a way, but it was true. I was responsible for molding and changing the lives of children. That was my chosen profession, and I had to do it in an environment stressed out by my massive budgetary issues, overwhelming paperwork demands, ever-changing rules and regulations, and so on and so on and so on. Now, some of you may be thinking, how does that help? Doesn't that realization just make things more stressful? And I guess it doesn't help directly, but indirectly it has helped me quite a bit. You see, I now understand the true source of my stress. Plus, I realize that I am not alone, and more importantly, I'll never be alone. You see, all of us involved in the care and education of children are in this together, and that somehow makes things easier for me to process. As we all know from personal experience, working with children can be extraordinarily demanding, physically, emotionally, and intellectually. Consequently, caring for and educating children is extremely stressful, and too much stress among childcare professionals not only affects the professionals' lives, but it also affects the quality of care they can provide for the children left in their charge. As you might imagine, this is an extremely important issue, so much so that psychologists have now identified and named this all too frequent problem. They call it caregiver stress syndrome. According to psydir.com, caregiver stress syndrome, or CSS, refers to the physiological and psychological changes experienced as the result of chronic stress due to ongoing caregiving activities. So what exactly is stress? Stress is the body's way of protecting us. It is the way our bodies respond to any kind of demand, or in technical terms, a stressor. Some stressors are universal. For instance, stress helps us deal with dangerous or threatening situations. Other stressors are unique to our family, our career, or even to ourselves. For instance, I am terrified of needles, so just seeing one puts me under an enormous amount of stress. This, however, is my fear and thus my very own personal stressor. As I mentioned earlier, humans cannot function effectively without a healthy level of stress. Either too much or too little stress can both be problematic. Yes, there are some people in the world who actually suffer from too little stress. Experts refer to this as the underload stress zone. However, the major problems arising from stress, problems like health damage, lower productivity, and poor quality of life, usually come from too much stress. This is referred to as the overload stress zone. Our goal should be to find the optimal stress zone and work within it. The optimal stress zone is the zone between too much and too little stress where we all function most effectively. Unfortunately, this zone is more easily defined than achieved because this zone is different for each of us. It is crucial, however, that we learn to identify when we are overstressed, as well as discover how to manage our stress levels, especially since we work with very young children every day.